So today was a pretty difficult day. I mean, it started at 3:30 a.m. by rocket from Yemen. And I think the tragedy of Yemen is so multidimensional that it's hard to express it. So first of all, 87% of the population of Yemen lives in a multi-dimensional poverty, which means a lot of things. Babies that are malnutrition, that are starving because of the inner conflicts. So for some reason, they decided to be able to afford rockets, long-range rockets, and send them into Israel, that is considered a developed country. And so this morning I had to run to the bomb shelter with my dog. Sam stays behind because it's really hard to catch a cat. And if I take him out, he might get lost. He might get hit by a car, which is more likely than to have damage from a rocket. But that's also possible, unfortunately, because we have almost daily or nightly attacks. Every night I wake up to a siren. I run out of the door with the dog. The dog already knows to go to the bomb shelter. It's really dangerous to run, like when you can slip running down the steps. So usually I have socks on. It's really, next time I think I'm just going to take my socks off because I almost slipped down the stairs, and there were people that were seriously harmed from that, running into the bomb shelter. Getting back to the problem, I think it's really tragic that a lot of people in the US and in Western Europe don't see the tragedy of Yemen and the way it's been manipulated by terrorist states to focus on Israel for some reason, rather than to solve their problems, rather than to save their children from malnutrition, starvation. Can't even imagine having a baby, just not have enough food. And the same thing happened, of course, in Gaza and Syria. Every Arab country that is involved in this attack on Israel, instead of focusing on improving their lives, they just do everything to destroy their lives by getting into this war and making it impossible for Israel not to react. I mean, how are you supposed to ignore rockets? The last rocket that hit a population center was in Jaffa, where there's a lot of Muslims living. Another tragedy happened this morning when an 83-year-old woman was brutally murdered by a man who didn't even know her. And from eyewitnesses, he said Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar, which is God is great in Arabic. And it's so sad that all over the world, the Muslims don't just go into a big protest of how their religion is used to justify massacres and murders of elderly people, women, children. I don't understand how anybody can celebrate massacres of people that were just like, the woman was waiting for her daughter. I mean, what could be more tragic than a woman waiting for her daughter? And the name of the street is Holocaust Victims. It was a street named for the Holocaust, for the victims of the Holocaust. I don't understand how a person can just, he's like 28, could just choose to take a knife, two knives, and attack an 83-year-old woman standing in the street. And the real complexity of the situation is that a medic by the name of Samuel, which is very odd because my cat is also called Samuel. I think he's an Arab. because I heard him talk, and he said he described what happened. He ran to help her. It tried to save her life, tried to stop the bleeding, and until the ambulance arrived, and he wasn't able to do it. You heard the Allah Akbar, and can you imagine? I don't know if he's a Christian Arab or is Muslim Arab, but still, to know that somebody's using the name of God in Arabic and calling it while taking the life of an elderly woman, a grandma, is just horrific. And she died in his arms, and she was talking to him. He said he looked her. Look, I can imagine what a great person he must be. He must be to hold the victim of such horrific violence in his arms and try to save her life and try to make her feel, good as she undergoes this horrific violent death. And he just like looked her in the eyes and listened to her, and she just said, I'm cold, and he was trying to help her and stop the bleeding as he was trained to do to save lives. And it's just so tragic that people around the world don't know that in Israel we have Arabs and Jews living together, working together. I go to the pharmacy. Most of the pharmacists in Israel, at least in Tel Aviv, are Arabs, Muslim Arabs, and they suffer a lot from the rockets. They suffered a lot in the north. There were people coming to work from the north under rocket attacks. Now it's stopped. Now at the moment there's a ceasefire, but now Yemen is sending rockets, and it hurts. There's like about 30% of Muslims living in Israel, and so the probability of them getting injured is also pretty great. So it's not just against Jews, and why should Jews be targeted anyway? We have no border dispute. We have, like, these people in Yemen are living in such poverty, and yet they have this technology to murder people. And then there's also these people are sent, it's orchestrated with local terrorists. This man was like 28 years old, and this is what he's doing with his life. He's taking a knife and murdering a woman he doesn't even know, an elderly woman, could be his grandmother, and he just murders her, just takes a knife and stabs her. How can somebody do such a thing and then call the name of God? Somebody must have brainwashed him from a very early age, because, you have to start really early to tell people that it's okay to murder a grandmother, to stab her in the chest. You have to be a very cruel person, and I don't think people are born cruel. I think they learn to be cruel. Just like there are people that are cruel to cats and animals, people that are cruel to an old grandmother. And then on the other hand, an Arab person called Samuel testified he was trying to stop the bleeding, and he was holding her in his arms. And this was, one man was murdering her, another man was saving her. This is the complexity of living in the Middle East. We can never generalize people. There are good and bad people on all sides, but the use of religion, to use the name of God while you're murdering another person, has got to be the most evil thing anyone can do. God is supposed to be a creator. It's supposed to be a life force. It's not supposed to be murdering an elderly person. This is not how her life should have ended. She should have died a peaceful death, surrounded by her loved ones. She shouldn't have had to be attacked like that and harmed like that. And it's really tragic that people are brought up to think that this is somehow justified. And it's not only in the Middle East, it's like in Europe and in US, people actually justify violent acts against people in Israel. And it's not just Jews that are harmed, by the way. It harms everybody, people, animals, everyone who lives here in the Middle East, in Israel, in the area of Israel. Everybody is harmed, and yet they justify violence. They justify hate. And at the end, it only backfires and it actually harms these people. Because if you really care about Arabs, you should look and just find out what Yemen is like and how people are really suffering there. And yet they, instead of dealing with their issues and trying to help their children have a better life, they're using their money to buy weapons to try to kill people in Israel. It's just really sad and tragic. But the hope is that there are people in Israel that really, they realize that it has nothing to do with them. Muslims who live in Israel, I think there are a lot of Muslims who live in Israel who just want to live a good life in Israel. They know they have a better life in Israel than they do in other Middle Eastern countries, definitely not in Yemen or Syria or Lebanon. They don't have a good life there. Or in the Palestinian territories, they don't have a good life because the leaders just do everything possible to distract from dealing with solving the problems of poverty and not offering a good future, but just focusing on hating others. And it's so sad. And it so gives me hope that there's a person called Samuel who's trying to save this woman's life, right, Sam? Yeah, he's not happy. I don't know what's going to happen tonight. It's like really scary. Any minute now, a siren can come and Sam is here behind. Right? It's not really a good life for anyone. I just hope somebody hears it and says, hey, enough is enough. It's really time to give peace a chance.